Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sip Club here at the Urban Wine Club. I'm your host, Foti, and with me, my co-host, Ari Kalos.
Hello, hello.
It's that time of the week again, brother, where we get to know wine a little better.
So the whole reason this whole sip clip came about this week is pretty interesting because you sent me a picture. It had all sorts of craziness that I never even heard of before, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" And you were explaining it to me, and then we decided, why don't we just do a sip clip, which I'm very happy for because I really know nothing about this. So give us a little taste of what we're
Yes.
talking about here.
So today we're talking about Van Gris or Gris De Gris, right?
Gris
So
De Gris, that means white on white?
white on white, or Van Gris, white wine. But this is a French term, which was basically something that was possibly discovered, but hails from France. So it's basically white wine made from red grapes.
White wine made from red grapes. Let me process that.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what I'm
process
trying to
that for a second.
process.
All right. So if you remember in our previous clip, we talked about rosé, and we broke it down on what rosé is. And almost the same as the whole production where rosés are also made from red grapes, but the distinct difference between red wine and rosés is that it's the amount of skin contact. So skin contact was the determining factor of what distinguishes the colors. So rosé has minimal skin contact when fermenting, so that only a small amount of extraction of pigmentation comes from the skins, which
Okay.
makes it that rosé color, right?
All right.
In Gris de Gris, there's zero skin contact whatsoever. So there's no what's called, so in the wine world, it's called maceration. It's basically when the grapes start to get crushed in the machine, and they're getting pressed and crushed, and the juice and the skins are sitting together in this vat or container while fermenting. With Gris de Gris, what they're doing is they're pressing whole clusters of grapes together and letting that free run juice collect in a separate vat. So there's it just flows without having any skin contact. And the result of it is the clear pulp. So whenever you slice a grape, I'm sure you've had, or when you've been into a big grape, if you ever look in the inside of a grape, whether it's red or white, the pulp is still clear.
Yeah.
Ever notice that?
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're just squeezing out the juice from the pulp, and that's running into a separate container. And the result of that produces this color of wine, if you look here on the screen.
So that looks almost like, okay, that could be white,
Yeah. So
but not,
white,
kind of.
pinkish. It's often mistaken as a rosé because it does have that tint of redness, but also some folks like to refer to it as gray wine. It has like a grayish look to it.
That's more what it sounds like when you say gris.
Gris, gray wine.
So when you first explained to me about the no skin contact, I thought that was like you were talking about like
There's
your dating
what?
life or your marriage or something.
Yes,
No skin contact whatsoever.
That's what happens after you get married and have kids, right, Ari? But the point is that also, folks have asked me why would they do that? Why would they give up their red grapes that can make such great red wines to make a style of wine that's very light, very pale in flavor, very, not so much going on? Well, there's a reason to it. There's some science and chemistry behind this. So a lot of winemakers in France discovered that when they start to press their grapes in the beginning and get a little bit of that juice out of the the vat,
Yeah.
then they let this, what they call the first run. So they press it for a small amount of time. Meaning they press the grapes in the barrels or the vats, and then once that free run juice is gone into another vat, then what happens is the skin contact to skin contact to juice ratio jumps up, meaning that now there's less juice, more skins to actually deepen the next batch of wine, which is going to become red wine, which means the wine will become more concentrated because there'll be more extraction of compounds from the skins, which would produce a richer, fuller, well-structured red wine, believe it or not.
Interesting.
So there's some mad science here.
That sounds pretty crazy. All right, so we get the definition, okay?
Yeah.
You poured yourself a little bit, right?
So I'm pouring myself a French Gris De Gris from the south of France, close to the Languedoc area.
And so you walk into a wine shop. Are you going to ask for a Gris De Gris, or are you going to ask for something else?
Well, if I'm looking specific, now that we know about this, when I go in there, I'm going to either ask for Gris De Gris or Vin Gris. Is basically the only way to ask for it. Some folks, will even say straight out, do you have any wines that have no? Do you have any red wines with no skin contact?
So
It's the easiest way to.
if you walk into a wine shop and you say this, like, are they going to look at you like you're crazy, or is this a normal thing?
Well, anywhere that you walk into, they're going to think you're crazy. But
that's me. But I'm saying a normal person.
Well, depending on where you're going to do your wine shopping, I guess, yeah, there might be a circumstance where, depending on the type of shop, whether it's a supermarket or whether it's a huge liquor store or whether it's a small fine wine shop, you might get a different reaction from when you ask for it.
But if they're knowledgeable, they should understand exactly what you're saying.
100. So here's the thing: no skin contact red wines now are being produced all over the world. A lot of California wineries are getting into it. A lot of European wineries are getting into it. Australian wines are doing it as well. It's become a trend, but it's still a trend that hasn't really hit yet in the mainstream.
Okay.
But it's been around for a long time, just like rosé has been around for a long time. But it produces a really unique wine in the sense of it has unique aromas, textures, and flavors.
Okay, so more importantly than everything else, Foti, wine expert, resident wine expert, you have some in your hand, you're sipping. Tell us all about it, because I'm very curious about this.
So, right off the bat, we've had the rosés before, and most rosés tend to be very bright and very fresh right from the aromas. This happens to be a little more tamed. It has subtle aromas. They're not as pronounced as in rosés are. And then when you get into the flavors, the texture, they're not as crisp. It's a little more like, what's the word I'm looking for? Slithery. Is that a word? It's like slithery.
Ooh. I think of that word every time I think of you. So I think, it is a word.
So it's not as tart. It's not as sharp.
Is it smooth?
Smooth, yeah, very round. And it still has bitterness to it. Like we talked about bitterness, like it has some tannins, which is interesting because you don't really find tannins in rosé and white wines like this. Yeah. But I'm picking up bitterness, and it has a very distinct bitter finish.
So you enjoy red wine, correct?
I enjoy it too much.
Okay. So as a red wine enjoyer, how is this enjoyer? How is this Gris en Gris? Is it something that red wine drinkers could get on board with?
That's a 50-50. I think this is something that will have to grow on you. I think it's an acquired taste. There's nothing wrong with it. I think that it's still very pleasant. It's still very subtle and easy to drink. But I think that psychologically, when you're being told this is a red wine, it kind of throws you off. You have expectations. Unless you go in with an open mind.
Would you say that a newbie wine drinker who doesn't have like any sort of sophisticated palate would enjoy this more? Would you think that somebody who's a very sophisticated palate would be able to like enjoy this? Like where does this lie on the scale?
I think it lies on the scale of right in the middle. It all depends. So every drinker has personal preferences regardless, but it's the way you approach it and you present it. I would pour this for somebody without telling them what it is first. And then I let them sip on it, and then we go into it. Because unfortunately, we all try to do our best to give a preview of what's to come when you taste wine. We give you all these descriptors. We go through these different terms and vocabulary. And then sometimes those approaches don't really connect with what you're experiencing. Right. So for something like this, that's so unique for us, it's unique to us, but it's been something that's being done for many, many years, is that I like to approach it as, hey, Ari, man, try this and tell me what you think. And then we go into it. But then after showing, discussing it, then hopefully there's an appreciation. But for me, drinking so many different styles of wines, I find it intriguing, and I find it fascinating that, that they're still doing this approach to make wine, like letting some of their juice out of their grapes for a short amount of time to produce this style, and then continue on to make their red wines with the same grapes that are in that same vat.
All right,
it's almost like double dipping.
Let me break this down in some terms that people could understand. Okay, I have my I don't know, like my little cousin. He just turned 21. He never really drank wine before. Is this something he would like?
I would say it was something that would be approachable for him.
Okay.
Now, whether he likes it or not, that's personal preference. But wines that are in
personal preference, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying you're going to know exactly what he wants. I'm just saying, like, he's a brand new wine drinker. Is this something that's on that like level, or is it more complicated?
No, if they don't know what it is, if you just poured a glass for them to sip, it would be approachable for them to enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the way I would say it.
Okay. So then take Ari, Kalos, me, a year ago, where all I wanted was light, fruity wines. Is this something Ari a year ago would like?
Ari would be like, this is interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's minus the sweet factor. They're not sweet.
Okay.
They're dry.
Now modern Ari, who's very sophisticated, super sophisticated, loves his bold red wine, loves it dry. Would I today like it?
Well, I would only pour this out. Now, having what you just said, I would have to wait for it to be late July, early August, summertime, maybe on the beach, at your summer house, out on the deck. We're having a barbecue. We're waiting for the food to be ready, and I'm pouring out this wine for you to sip. Right. You're gonna drink it.
I very much like that whole description, that whole atmosphere, that whole like essence of how to drink this wine. Okay. So what about somebody? So we already addressed you. So somebody who's very well versed.
How about this? Let's talk about rosé drinkers, because there's an influx of rosé drinkers, right? So a rosé drinker might pick this up, thinking that it's rosé, take it home, pour it out, and like, oh, this is not rosé, because they're expecting a very crisp, tart, maybe slightly citrusy rosé, where this is not the case. This has more deeper, richer flavors. It has richer structure and bitterness, so it might throw them off.
So from your description to me, it sounds like this is a bit of a complex wine, not like a simple wine. But you explain the taste, the flavor, the texture, the aroma as somewhat simple, like I don't know if I want to say like a whitish, a simple whitish, but it just sounds more complicated than that.
It does, and again, Gris de Gris wines are definitely fantastic food wines. So because I mentioned that key element, that bitterness that you find in the finish of this wine is basically what really works with food. So if like going back to your patio at your Cape house and we're waiting for you to hurry up with the food on the grill, if you're like we have some cheese out, we have some snacks out, some salty tidbits, salty foods and snacks with a wine like this is fantastic.
Wow.
Then the wine becomes a little more elegant and smooth. Um, and then the other thing that's really important that I've been discussing with others about who makes Gris de Gris wines or gray wines is that you can only use specific grapes in grapes that have dark skins. So like Pinot Noir has dark skins, Grenache has dark skins, and
Mhm.
so has dark skins. So it wouldn't work with grapes that have lighter or thinner skins because of the whole chemistry behind it. So there's also specific grapes that you have to use to make good Gris de Gris wine.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very curious. I mean, we're doing this sip
Well,
clip.
here's the thing. There's so many fascinating factors in the wine world that we are often just not aware of. A lot of these are overlooked, but they're there. There's so many fascinating approaches to how they're making certain wines in the modern times and also from the ancient times that are still being used today. It's just an interesting world where we find these little tidbits that actually bring light to them to our audience.
Absolutely. I mean, can you give me the quote that Thomas Jefferson made?
Yes, and I think we need to live by this quote. I think it should be part of our branding moving forward. But Thomas Jefferson was an affluent wine enthusiast who actually was one of the first, believe it or not, the first wine importer in the United States back in like the 1800s or late 1700s. And he was importing French wine into the U.S. mainly for his personal consumption in his cellar, but then he got into his little business. But one of his famous quotes is, you know, good wine is a necessity of life for me, and I can relate to that.
I
You know,
think we could all
you
relate
know,
to that. I could definitely relate
because
to that.
over time, your palate gets so trained, if that's the word we can use. I like to say trained.
Hmm.
I'm not going to use the word excessive drinking, but consistently drinking wine, your palate gets trained and it picks up nuances over time. So, we're always looking for the next best thing.
Foti, I'm 100% the epitome of that phrase because, like I said, when we started all this, I was like a complete newbie, know nothing about anything wine, and I just wanted like light,
Mm.
fruity, like flavors, nothing complicated. And now, I've been drinking pretty
Well,
consistently, especially during the pandemic, and that trained me into like a completely new palate.
well, what you just mentioned is basically the gateway. Light, fruity, refreshing is the style that is the gateway for folks that want to get into wine. Because truth be told, uh, wine that we enjoy that has structure and so forth, they're acidic, they're bitter, some of them could be a little abrasive. Those characteristics aren't always pleasant to start right off the bat.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I'm like growing as a
You're
drinker.
you're you're blossoming.
Yeah, I'm blossoming like a beautiful young lady. But I'm like if I get a fruity light wine now, like I'm like, get it the hell away from me. Like I need a strong, bold,
Yeah.
dry wine. And it's the same thing I went through with coffee. I used to drink like Dunkin' Donuts, like nasty, light, crappy coffee, and now I need my coffee to be like hard,
Bold,
like thick.
bitter.
Yes, like I need
Yeah.
it. Like I can't do
Yeah.
that light stuff anymore.
That's good, man, because that's called, you're evolving, and
Yeah,
that's exactly what we're.
but what worries me is what's the next step? If I get sick of this, there's nothing more. Like I like
Oh,
the harshest of the harsh.
well, no, it's not.
I don't want to
It's
say
all
harsh.
psychological.
Maybe harsh
No.
isn't the right word.
Then as you evolve and you develop a palate, then you get into finer wines, which unfortunately have a higher ticket price, and that's where we have this like expensive habit.
See, you did this. You're like a drug dealer. You did this on purpose. You kept giving me
Just
all this wine for free, and now I need the heavy duty expensive ones. And now you're like, well, I can't give you this
it's
for free. So
you can't go back now. Once you get to that level, you can't go back down. It just doesn't work anymore. That fix isn't there anymore.
I'm so like at that point. Like I drank a wine, and I'll tell you a completely proven point. I drank a wine that I used to love, and I knew this for a fact. The label, the
Hmm.
wine, the year, everything. I loved it. I drank it like maybe a week, 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and I was like, "This is horrible. I can't drink this shit." Pardon my French, but like I can't. Like I need. I feel like my palate just got more. I want to say sophisticated, if that's the correct term.
Spoiled.
That too.
You got it's got. I listen. I go through these phases all the time. You just mentioned that I will revisit wines that I used to enjoy, and when I crack it open, I'm like, nah, it's just not doing it for me anymore.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's
But
very crazy.
but again, at least in the world of wine, what's wonderful is that there's so many great wines out there that it's almost unlimited to what we have access to now.
Yeah.
So there's always something exciting coming up.
And all the wines you give me, like now, you always told me to take notes, and you always told me to like keep track. Literally, the last like few months, I've been taking pictures and notes of every wine that I like because it's so important to me now that I know
Mm,
which wines really do it for me. You know?
that's great that you're able to distinguish that now you're understanding, appreciating, wines that you probably would say to yourself, or never would probably even consider drinking because
Absolutely.
it doesn't make sense. The label is too complicated as far as what they're saying on the label. It's from an unknown area that you've never heard of.
But
Blah
see,
blah blah.
you said
Right?
spoiled before, and that's very true because you are the person who selects my wine as of late. So I walk in, I'm like, Foti, I love these bold, like
In your
powerful.
face.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, bing, 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 bing. And you give me a case of wine and I'm on my way. Like normal people don't do that. And, if I didn't have you, like, I'd be like, what the hell am I doing? Where do I get what I like? I don't know what I like. I don't know where to get it. So people have to talk to first of all, people should
You
talk to
definitely
us.
do.
They
Yes.
send us an email, call us, do whatever you need to do, fill out the little wine profile that we have on Urban Wine Club because that is a very important thing because Foti takes those wine profiles and he builds your custom, like what you like.
You
And
curate your package, right?
if you become a subscriber, like he will send that to you. And a lot of our subscribers have only good things to say. I am a subscriber in essence, except I don't pay for it. And I always
Oh,
love.
believe me, you pay for it in other ways.
Yeah, maybe, but but my point is that it's so you always now that I tell you what I like, which is like putting that profile together. Like you give me such good wines, and I take notes. If you give me 12 wines, I'm gonna say like 11 of them are awesome, and the 12th one is good. And then
Okay.
I'll tell you, you know what? I love these. This one was okay. And then you cultivate that a little more and it gets even better. So,
Better. Well, the thing is, there's so many great wines in front of us when we're in a wine shop. We just don't know that they're that great because we don't understand them. So it's just basically being able to identify and pick which ones are suitable for what you're looking for.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And let's make this a point. We should also let our audience know that they can always send us messages through all of our social media channels. Any questions they have, even when they're in a wine shop and maybe they're having a hard time, sending us a quick message and we'll try to get a quick response while they're there. We're all about helping our members and our guests and our audience to any degree that we can to make a better decision.
Well, I mean, that's what we do. Like, send the message. Foti knows his stuff. Take it from me. I started off with the fruity light, and he would give me these awesome wines that I loved. My wife loved the bold, thick, like in your face, and he would give her the stuff she loves. Now she loves to brag about it, but she's like, I made you this way because now I crave that bold, thick. And every time I come to your shop, you give me the good stuff. Whenever we do the sip clips, I have your wines and I love them. I didn't have the Gris on Gris. This is like the first wine sip clip that I didn't have the wine, but the way you described it is so like tantalizing. So now like I'm so curious, and I'm sure the audience
that will be in your next package.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right.
Excellent. Well, that wraps up another segment here on Urban Wine Club Sip Clip of the Week. And we just broke it down for you. Gris De Gris, Vin Gris, or gray wine. So look out for it whenever you see it at your local wine shop or wherever you actually pick up your wines. It's definitely something we highly recommend trying if you love to explore and understand the the beautiful wine world and what it has to offer.
Well, give them like a very quick what should they expect when they grab this wine?
So definitely a lighter style wine that has very subtle flavors, very round on the palate, and a slightly dry, bitter finish. So they're definitely great sipping wines. But what I mentioned earlier is definitely a wine to pour out when you're having snacks before dinner, or maybe appetizers, or maybe a cocktail hour. That it's a definitely great alternative to other light wines that you should definitely explore.
Awesome. All right. Foti, as always,
Right.
thank you for the information. Thank you for the knowledge. I never, ever heard of this before today. And I'm so glad like we did this sip clip, and I'm looking very much forward to trying it, especially
Absolutely.
now, the summer hot, warm weather ends, and I'm sure like next weekend I'll be down Cape. So maybe I gotta come see you beforehand.
You definitely have to do that.
So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Foti, for the information. Stay tuned. Check out the website, urbanwineclub.co, and our podcast, our video series, all the stuff
Webinars.
that we do. Yeah, the seminars. Oh my God, like the most important thing. Stay tuned for all that stuff. It's all good. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Foti.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers to you. We'll see you next time.